So Patrick Hedger says he wants to protect people from the We the People Act or the For the People Act. And I say I want to protect people from capitalism. We debate next. Check it out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. To start out, Marjorie Taylor Greene, just on the floor of the House of Representatives, succeeded in blocking immediate passage. It was supposed to happen before we went on the air, of the COVID relief bill that passed the Senate a little while ago, a couple days ago. And, she did this. She's requiring the entire House to vote on whether or not to adjourn, which is a stupid parliamentary procedure. But basically, she said, this bill is terrible. She said, quote, "It does everything to help illegals. It pays reparations. It's disgusting. We're already $28 trillion in debt. Japan and China own our debt. Japan and China own America because they own our national debt. And here the Democrats go, and they're shoving us in more debt. We are enslaved like people with chains around our wrists and ankles," says Marjorie Taylor Greene. Right. Over at the Taxpayer Protection Alliance, there's an interesting op-ed about this COVID relief brimming with wasteful spending. And just by coincidence, the vice president for policy at the Taxpayers Protection Alliance, Patrick Hedger, is on the line with us. Prior to this, he was a research fellow at the Competitive Enterprise Institute's Center for Technology and Innovation, and also served as a director of policy at FreedomWorks, the wonderful people who brought us the Tea Party. ProtectingTaxpayers.org is the website. Patrick's Twitter handle is Pat Hedger, Hedger 18, Pat Hedger 18, although he is well over 18 years old. Hey, Patrick, how are you?
Oh, had to take that one last dig, didn't you, Tom? How you doing?
About your age?
Yeah,
oh, no,
that's all right.
You're a young guy. I mean, I'm the old man here. I'm creaky back in my day. Anyhow, Patrick, give me your take on this COVID relief bill. Do you agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene that we American people, and presumably I'm assuming because she specifically said, this helps out black farmers, so I assume she's talking about white people, we are in chains?
Oh, gosh, I don't want to be anywhere near what Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying.
God bless you, my friend.
It's unfortunate to be on the right of center trying to make arguments where I do care about the plight of the people in this country that could use a hand up and could use a hand out. And then, Tom, you and I disagree on a lot of things, but I trust that you have good in your heart. And I just don't know where MTG or Marjorie Taylor Greene is coming on a lot of issues. So to put her aside, which I think a lot of folks need to do, I'm just concerned about this bill in terms of a lot of it is not focused. I mean, the vast majority of it is not actually focused on direct COVID relief, right? I can make a case for the government to be an insurer of last resort, especially in a case like the COVID-19, right? I mean, if Godzilla came ashore and tore apart the West Coast, I would say the federal government should get involved and help people out. And the COVID-19 has been basically a microscopic Godzilla on our economy. But I worry that some estimates, I believe it was the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, said that only about 5% of this $1.9 trillion bill, which is not a small amount of money, it's the GDP of Canada, this $1.9 trillion bill, only 5% of it is directed towards specific COVID-19 relief. And that means a lot of the rest of it is sort of a Christmas tree of political priorities.
So that's your principal argument against it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to have a debate about the other things that are in the bill if we could argue about those as
well. No, I'm happy to talk about that. Sure. First of all, the OECD, and I don't know if you caught this. This was in the Financial Times day before yesterday, and then, or maybe it was yesterday, and this morning the United Press International published it. You're familiar with the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. It's basically the group of the 34 richest nations in the world. The poorest is Costa Rica. The richest is us. And they came out with a study, it's called an interim report, actually. And they suggested that originally in December, 3 months ago, they predicted that worldwide GDP would grow in 2021 by 4.2%. They've revised that upward to 5.6%. And the reason why, they said, and this is a quote, Projected U.S. economic growth indicates a 3% revision compared to the December outlook due to President Joe Biden's $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. And then they add the large-scale relief package will increase upswings in both the U.S. and international economies. The point of, okay, we're increasing the national debt here, but and I know in the press release you had sent me earlier, it quoted our national debt at being 126% of GDP, which is interesting because that's the exact number we were at after World War II. And what did Dwight Eisenhower do to get us out of that 126% debt, ratio to GDP? He borrowed more money and built the interstate highway system and built schools and hospitals all across America. He created the infrastructure necessary for business to prosper. We have been living in austerity for 40 years, this Reaganomics. And so, if this bill, helps people with COVID and puts America back together, I don't get what's wrong with that.
Well, so there's a lot of provisions that I wouldn't argue that exactly put America back together. You've got some pet projects that create moral hazard, right? But the majority of my point is that these are things that ought to be discussed individually and not entirely tied to COVID-19, because a lot of Americans are focused on how do we recover from COVID-19, which again, like I said.
But you realize you can't do that. Forgive the interruption, Patrick, but we're down to 2 minutes here.
Sure.
But you realize you can't do that with Republicans threatening to filibuster everything in the Senate. I mean, this is the one chance Democrats are going to have.
Yeah, well, and this is going to get through the Senate without any Republican support. Already has.
It already has.
I'm very critical of the way that Republicans spent during the Trump years leading up to this. It's unfortunate that we're spending like this in a crisis when we should have been putting away a nest egg during the good times.
Isn't that when we should be spending in a crisis?
Yeah,
shouldn't we set aside a nest egg during good times, like 3 years ago?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think the Republicans were completely irresponsible, lost the mantle of fiscal responsibility over the last few years. But that doesn't mean that we need to beget more ridiculous spending. I think there's room for targeted relief, targeted stimulus, and I would phrase it more as a compensation to the businesses that have been forced to be closed by the public health measures. But, hundreds of millions of dollars to bail out pensions, hundreds of billions of dollars to build a new subway system. I mean, these things, this Christmas tree of pork barrel spending is not the way to get the economy going again. It robs capital from small businesses.